All right, so I'm here live, 10X Growth Con here in Miami, and bringing on Elis Ortiz. It's going to be exciting, so let me go ahead and bring on Elis, and it's going to be a great convo. I'm pumped up for him, and for us to talk about his chapter in Real Stories, Real People, titled "The 200-Pound Turnaround." So I'm going to invite Elis again, and real quick, bam, invite. So, and for those of you guys that haven't picked up the book, I would definitely check it out. It's called Real Stories, Real People, Stories of Weight Loss. And Elis's chapter is really fantastic, where he talks about his story called the 200-pound turnaround. Elis was about 150 pounds when he was 6 years old. So it's pretty amazing to think about what that even looks like. So it's pretty crazy to think about being 150 pounds that young in life. And just a reminder for everyone, all these stories, all these conversations are really just designed to help create awareness for someone who has a great story to tell. You don't have to be a celebrity to inspire people. I was mentioning earlier that inspiring comes from the Latin rooted word meaning in spirit, and stories reach the soul. So I'm super excited to have this conversation with a kindred soul on a similar path through life of overcoming challenges and life obstacles, Mr. Elis Ortiz. So we are waiting for Elis to join us. I'm streaming live here from 10th Growth Con in Miami, and about to go in. It's going to be exciting, but I wanted to make sure we have this conversation first. So not sure where the holdup is for Mr. Elis, but hopefully he could find out soon what's up. So you don't have any viewers yet. All right, I don't know what's going on here, Elis. Says I've already invited him. So as we are patiently awaiting for Elis, there he is. Bring him on camera. It says adding. Let's see if we can make this work out. So bringing Elis on camera now. It says adding, and again, his chapter called 200-Pound Turnaround. This is gonna be a great combo, and I'm super pumped to share his message with you. So Elis, if you're watching, which it seems like it is, it says adding. So at the bottom of your phone, you should be able to click a little button that says connect or join Mike live. It should say something like that. All right, Elis, we're counting on you, buddy. So we're counting on you. You can do it, buddy. There's a button. I'm sure there's a button that says join Mike live. You can do it. And it says no answer from the live video guest. All right, geez, Elis. Let's try this again. So it says adding. Just make sure your phone is turned sideways. There we are. Hey, you did it.
Wow, that was hard.
Man.
How you doing?
Oh, my gosh.
It would not work. I'm like, man, poor Mike. Oh, my God.
I'm drowning over here, man. I'm like,
oh, man.
All right. Hey, we made it. We made it. So,
we did it. We did it. Wow.
So where are you right now?
Me, excuse me for the background noise. I'm actually outside my apartment complex.
No, all good. Where do you live now?
Me, I live in Tampa, Florida.
Deal, man. Yeah, I'm over in Miami right now at 10X Growth Con. So with Grant Cardone and John Maxwell and whatnot. So, yeah, it's about to be great, man.
Right.
So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of background noise where I'm at, too, I'm sure. So, but we're going to have a great convo,
okay.
man. And I know I was telling some people about this conversation and your chapter in the book, 200-pound turnaround. And, you know, I really am, I have a series of questions I'm super excited to ask you. And I know it's the unspoken, man, so you could be as vulnerable and as open as you want, you know, and I'm gonna ask the questions. And for those of you that haven't read the chapter or follow Elis online, you should, man. My goodness, I posted a picture before to see the story of him. What were you, 6 years old and you were 150 pounds? Did I read that right?
Yep, pretty much.
Wow.
I hit 200 pounds when I was 10 years old. I was already at 200 pounds, so it was there.
So let's just dig right in, man. Talk to us about Elis as a kid, the 150-pound, 200-pound kid. What was life like for you that early in life?
I mean, it wasn't bad. It wasn't really bad. In all reality, you know, when you're young and you're chubby, a lot of people find it cute. You know, oh my God, he's so chubby, he's so cute. You know, they like to pinch your cheek. So, you know, when you're young, it's okay. But after you hit a certain age, it stops being okay and starts being a problem.
What age was that for you?
Me, it wasn't until I hit like my teenage years, 12, 13, when it really started to become a problem. It was always a problem. The doctors always told my mother that I was morbidly obese, even at the age of 5, 6, 7. But you know, I guess it was one of those things where my family always believed I would just grow out of it. Like, you know, they believed it was a phase, but lo and behold, I didn't grow out of it. It actually just got worse. So it wasn't until I hit, you know, 13, 14, once you hit middle school, those years are always tough. Big or not, you know, those are just tough years. So
talk to us about that challenge. Yeah, I'm curious. Talk to us about those tough years.
I'm on both because my demographic is Facebook.
It was bad. I would say middle school was bad for me, only because that's when all the insecurities start to really set in. Could you hear me okay, Mike?
I can hear you good. I'm going to move a little bit, though, just because there's some people right next to me.
The background noise?
Yeah, I can hear you good, though.
Okay, perfect. So, I mean, no, middle school, that was when it really hit me, because that's when, you know, kids could be vicious sometimes and they don't hold back with calling each other's names and things like that. I never saw my weight as a problem until I got to that point in my life. You know, basically, I pretty much had to laugh through it all. You know, I had to be able to defend my own too, because the good thing about me is, although I was overweight, you know, I was also a pretty funny guy. I was pretty cool. So, you know, I had friends. You know, it wasn't that tragic tale where, you know, I didn't have any friends or anything like that. Thank God I had good friends too. I was very sensitive to, you know, to what I was going through with my weight. And it was both bad and good. But what made it even worse was because I was so hard on myself. I was actually my own worst critic, I guess you can say.
Sure. So talk to us about that. You know, when no one was watching, you're by yourself, you're in your room. Because I know some people that are, you know, mom's gonna love you anyway, family's gonna love you anyway, your friends are gonna love you anyway. But then there's still that inner voice, like you're talking about, when no one else is around, that could potentially make us feel inadequate or less, or, you know, depressed or worried or defeated. Did you have any of those voices in those early ages when no one else was around?
Okay. Definitely. It was actually when no one else was around when it would hit me the most. Um, it's a beautiful story if you think about it, because my friends and family were always supporting me. You know, they were always very good to me, very kind to me. But it wasn't until, you know, behind the scenes where I would look at myself and be like, I would feel like I was never good enough. You know, especially throughout those teenage years when you grow up looking at everybody, looking how everyone looks, seeing what they have, and wanting the same things they have. But a part of you feels like you can't have it because you don't look like they do, or you can't do the things that they do. So in a way, it's almost like I was facing my own demons.
Sure.
But my friends and family, honestly, they were what held me afloat. You know what I mean? They were actually all the encouragement I needed at the time, and you know, so it's kind of a self thing as
Sure.
well, you know.
And what's interesting is, you know, growing up, I was overweight myself. I would used to wear like a T-shirt in the swimming pool. You know, I would, you know, making sure that I would try to hide it as much as possible. And, you know, it was those lonely moments around, like sneaking the desserts and the Twinkies into my bedroom, and like, self-indulging, and was there anything like that, in your lifetime where you were just like, there was almost like a shame in the sense of like,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I was, because I grew up in church too. I'm a church boy. So not only was I overweight or overeating, but I was being told that what I was doing was also a sin. Gluttony. So people would look at me in disgust. One, because I was overweight, and two, because in their eyes, I was overeating.
mm,
They almost looked at it as disgusting.
mm,
So obviously that doesn't help with the insecurities. So first off, I was so hard on myself because I was actually very active. I was very into the performing arts. I was a dancer. I was into the mixed martial arts. A lot of physical activity, but I always felt limited. Um, so one, I was already disgusted with myself as it was, but then two, having people look at you the same way, it doesn't help.
yeah,
It doesn't help, and that stays with you.
yeah,
You know.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So what was your high? Like, what did you get to, as your highest weight? What age were you when you reached that peak?
I was about 15 years old, and I hit 390 pounds. I was 10 pounds away from 400 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah.
So 390 pounds, 15 years old. And talk to us now. You've reached these lower moments, these points in your adolescence where, people pinching the chubby cheeks. And for those that are just joining us, it was kind of cute when he was young. You'll grow out of it. And then you get to that 12, 13-year-old range, and it's like, wow, I'm not really growing out of it. I'm actually continuing to grow. Kids are cruel. Self-talk is cruel. Social media is even worse. I know that wasn't as popular back then, of course, as it is now, but I can only imagine if someone's listening to this and they are on social media and experiencing those inner demons that you were experiencing when you're 12 and 13, it's probably even worse now. And these inner demons take over. Then we have the community of the church, help making you feel worse about sinning and glutton but at the same time, you had the love and the support of friends and family that didn't make it feel as bad. But then 15 years old hit, you're 390 pounds. Talk to us about that. Talk to us about the turnaround of that peak of like, all right, enough is enough. I got to do something about this. Talk to us about that turnaround, because your story was a little unique, where it was, I don't tell the story. You tell it. I don't want to spoil it for everyone.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. No, I mean, the depression hits. After, when you hit the teenage years, um, there's a phase when you really go into this dark state of mind. And that could go for anything, whether you're overweight or you're suffering through any condition. It's just this phase you hit. It got to a point where I didn't leave the house. I stayed in my room for weeks and weeks at a time. I never wanted to go out because every time I went out, I was constantly reminded of the things I couldn't do. So there were times when my friends would go horseback riding, but I couldn't get on the horse because the horse has a weight limit.
Mm.
There were times when even going go-kart racing or on the bumper cars in amusement parks, I could never fit on the bumper cars. There were some regular cars I couldn't even fit into either. I crack up telling the story about the roller coasters because I've been kicked out of so many roller coasters, during that time. It's funny, but the first time it happens is traumatizing.
Sure.
I was actually a kid the first time it happened, and I crack up because they placed me on the roller coaster with a lot of other kids, and I'm looking as a kid. I'm watching the man crank the machine, and he's sweating. He's having a hard time. He's like, "Why isn't this thing working?" So the roller coaster would go up, and then it would come back down. So he thought the machine was broken until after the third attempt, he stopped for a minute and he realized, oh shoot, I think I know what the problem is. So that's when he walked up to me. Out of all them kids on that ride, he grabbed me by the hand and he took me off. He cranked it up again, and it worked perfectly. So
Wow.
everybody in the audience were shocked because wow, they had to take the fat boy out of the ride.
Wow.
And so I'm standing there, all devastated. There's nothing I could do, but I crack up because my friend was with me at the time, and we hear this lady cracking up in the audience, and my friend's like, "Who's that lady cracking up?" So I had to turn to him and tell him the truth. Oh, that was my mom. so,
Mom.
so Mom, yep, mom. But what's funny is that, to mom, to family, it was just funny. It wasn't an issue for them. It was only an issue for me.
Mm.
But, they don't realize that, in such an embarrassing moment, having mom and cousins and friends laugh at you, that kind of makes you feel like, damn, I don't have anyone on my corner.
Yeah. So
But
this was when you were about 15 years old. You were about.
no, this was when I was about 9 or
Oh, okay.
10. I
So
was a
so you were
kid.
still
By the
about, even at that age, you were over 200 pounds, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it was, after that, it just kept happening.
Yeah.
Why did I keep attempting on getting on these roller coasters? I don't know. It's stupid me. But that's another funny part is that my friends always encouraged it. They said, try it. You'll fit this time.
Wow.
You lost weight. You look good. Try it. And then I would try it. And so, I would go through the embarrassment again of having 4 or 5 guys trying to buckle the seatbelt and they couldn't click it.
Mm.
So I would try to rush and immediately tell them, no, guys, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, just let me out of the ride before anybody really notices. But, they felt bad. They didn't want to have to kick the fat boy out. So, after several attempts, they would tell me, I'm sorry, bro, you have to get off. I would have to get off, do the walk of shame.
Yeah.
But then what's funny is I would look behind me and watch my friends crack up.
Yeah.
So the whole point of them suggesting that I get on the ride was just so they could have a good laugh. So it's
Yeah.
you know
And
it's
it's crazy because
it's
you're what, you're what, 29 now? 28?
I'm 28.
So
Yep,
we're going
28.
back almost 20 years. 20 years, and you could still remember the laughter, the shame, the feelings, and you tell the story. And I know there's some people watching this that still have that childlike emotion that we can laugh at now, but in the moment, I mean, that's some real. I mean, that could be traumatizing. Of course, it is traumatizing because you remember 20 years later.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you had a turnaround, so you're
Yeah.
no longer, 390 pounds. You're no longer that kid. Now you're what, 200 pounds? 180?
Now I'm 180. 180.
180.
Yeah,
All right. So now
yeah, yeah,
let's talk about the hero in the story. All right. Let's talk about the turnaround. Where did you where was the enough? Tell us about the enough is enough. It's time for a change.
yeah. I can't really sit there to tell you there was one moment because every day there was a moment. Every day there was a moment where it's like, wow, I can't live like this. Wow, I cannot believe that this happened. It gets to the point where it's like, what do I have to look forward to life? You start feeling like every day you're limited. You're just experiencing bad times after bad experiences. It wasn't until I hit my 20s, when I was about 20, 21, 22, those beginning years when I'm like, wow, I'm in my 20s, what is supposed to be the best years of my life, and I am depressed more than ever. The depression got so fast, it got so bad, I'm sorry, that I even ended up losing my hair. I had high blood pressure, high cholesterol. I was about to get diabetes. Mind you, I'm only 20 years old, so I'm already dying at at this stage, this stage of my life when I'm supposed to be at my healthiest. So, when I lost my hair and I asked the doctor, it never grew back, by the way. But when I asked the doctor, I said, "What's causing my hair loss?" He said, "It's not only the weight that's causing the hair loss; it's your stress. You're depressed." I said, okay. He's like, you need to stop being so hard on yourself because in reality, the weight isn't even the issue here. It's how hard you are on yourself.
Mm.
You're causing all this extra stress on your own shoulders. So
And I just want to emphasize that, everyone has their own stuff. Whether it's a death of a loved one, a physical limitation, something that we're cursed with or gifted with. Like, we have our own stuff. And what Ellis, what you just said is so rich of, like, the circumstance is not what's creating the pain. It's how we're handling the circumstances what's creating the pain. The story we're telling ourselves about the circumstance that's really creating most of the pain. Now, granted, there's some pain for being that overweight, but at the same time, from what you just said, it's the story that we're telling ourselves around that we shouldn't have this pain, that we should be pain free, or there shouldn't be any challenges, whatever it might be. or I'm not enough, I'm incapable. Those stories are what's creating the most pain. I think that's just so rich of what you're saying, because it's not the situation itself. It's how we approach it, how we think about it, how we feel about it. So go on. I just want to make sure that point got landed. So
Yeah.
so tell us about this
No,
turnaround. So you had this conversation with the doctor, and you said, all right, enough is enough. I got to change this thing around. And is that when you got the gastro surgery, or was it after that, or around that same time, or?
that was a whole other
Oh,
story
that's a whole other
because
story. Okay.
that's a whole story because in order to even get approved for such a surgery, you have to go through training. They have to be able to get in and find out what caused the habits of overeating to begin with. It's a bit of therapy, but it's a process because they have to teach you everything. They have to teach you about nutrition. They have to teach you about tips and tricks on how to eat, what to eat. And on top of them having to teach you all these things, you have to find it in yourself to even, because once you're used to eating cheeseburgers and McDonald's, the last thing you want to eat is a salad. But you have to train your mind into enjoying those foods. So it took a couple years of this training process, and then they never approved me for the surgery.
So you were from age
So
20 to like 22, 23 years old. How
yep,
how heavy were you at that point? Were you still at that 390-pound range?
yep, I had hit 400 pounds.
So you
That 400-pound point.
so you had over 400 pounds at about 22, 23. You didn't get approved for the surgery at this point in time, even though you're going through the mental toughness, the changes, the habits, the belief patterns. So then what? 23 years old hits, 24 years old hits, then what?
Yeah, yeah. Honestly, it was a mental turnaround before a physical one because, like you said earlier, it's about perspective. And I finally told myself, I said, I'm not gonna live the rest of my days looking at myself this way. I changed my perspective on how I looked, on how I felt. It's weird because it's like, how do I explain it? It's like, I grew up in church, so I am a believer in God. Um, so in my head, I always knew there was a reason for it. It was actually that perspective that had me, keep going. So, in my head, I'm like, something's about to happen
Mm,
where things are going to change, and I have to be ready mentally for this change.
mm.
Therefore, if I'm going to lose weight and become this new man physically, I have to think that way already. I have to act as if it already happened because it's going to happen.
Yeah.
There's a reason for all this. So it wasn't until I adapted that mentality when suddenly everything just changed. Everything. Where I got a phone call not too long after that said, okay, hey, you're approved for the surgery. So, when they called me and told me I was approved for the surgery, I was terrified. I was honestly terrified, not because of the surgery, but because in my head, I'm like, what if something goes wrong and they tell me I'm no longer approved for the. I said if I didn't get that surgery, I was gonna die. That was actually my last chance. So I left it in God's hands at
At
that
what
point.
age was
I said,
this?
this was 23 years old.
So after, so
Um,
just to clarify, for those that just caught up, all right, and those that just visited, ready? We're going 6 years old, 150 pounds. 10 years old, 200 something pounds. 15 years old, 390 pounds. 20 years old, reached over 400 pounds. From humiliation of getting off roller coasters to not fitting in cars, not fitting in bumper cars, friends, getting humor out of this, family loving you either way, self-talk, self-actualization of like, I don't want to live my life this way anymore. I'm going to go get better. I'm going to seek some help. I try to get approved for a surgery. I get denied. I'm 23 years old now, and I got to get my mind right. Otherwise, I'm going to die this way. You get your mind right, so that way you could get approved for the surgery. You're 23 years old. You get approved for the surgery. Talk to us about that moment right there where you find out you get approved.
that was that moment. That was that moment when they gave me the okay, and she said, okay, we have you set up for tomorrow at this time. Come to the hospital, and you'll be good to go. It was surreal. At that moment, it was surreal because everything was going to change. Um, my life was going to change, but my perspective, my whole world was going to change, which was everything I needed at the time. I gave up. I gave up. I gave up. Um, so lo and behold, Mike, can you hear me?
I got you.
My bad, I dropped the phone. So anyway, so lo and behold, next day I walked in, I got the surgery. Mind you, mom's there, mom and dad. They're scared, they're terrified because they didn't know what the surgery was. They thought I was gonna die on the surgery table. But I told them, I said honestly, if the doctors told me there was a 90% chance that I was gonna die on that surgery table, I was still gonna go for the surgery. That's bad. So saying that is powerful because it's almost like you have to understand that I was almost ready for death at that point. In my head, I'm like, I'm ready to go because there's nothing left for me. So, without
So just to help you collect your thoughts here, I mean, you're 23 years old, and you're like, hey, whatever I got to do to change, I'm ready for it. I'm ready for death, or I'm ready for life. But like something's got to change, and that's called a threshold. And when any of us reach that threshold of change, where there's so much pain that I am willing to die or I'm willing to live, but I have to change. That's when any type of greatness or opportunity or anything that's going to happen in your life is when that threshold. And sometimes we could intentionally create that threshold, or we can circumstantially create that threshold. And in your case, it was a circumstance that's like, I have to change. I have to create change in my life. So I absolutely love that part of your story, because many of us, wait too late in the game to create that change, and then then we don't even have an opportunity for change, and then we live with regret for the rest of our life. And you said no, like no way, no how, forget it. Like I'm gonna change now, and you got approved for the surgery. You're 23 years old. How long was the recovery? So this is a pretty big surgery. They took out. I mean, how much did they kind of take off of you?
Um, so how the surgery works is that they don't cut your stomach in half. They don't take off any fat. You get off the surgery table still fat,
Mhm.
but your stomach is smaller. So what they do is that they go in, they make 5 incisions on your stomach, and they go in with a camera and they just staple your stomach. They staple the stomach enough where you no longer have this huge belly, but you now have a stomach the size of your fist, normal stomach. So now, when you try to eat or overeat, you can't because your stomach won't allow you to eat past a certain point. So that's the science behind it. But basically, that just meant like now I have a chance um, to eat. I have to pick and choose what I eat, I guess. So within 2 months, I had already lost a good 80 pounds. Um, Within the first 5 months, I want to say I lost 140 pounds around there. Within the first year, I had lost 200 pounds. It happened so quick that after I lost all the weight, I would walk by friends, family, and they wouldn't even know it's me. And I would laugh because I understood the change was so drastic that they wouldn't recognize me.
Mm.
So I would have to stop them and be like, "Hey, do you remember me?" And they look at me like, "I'm sorry, sir, I don't know who you are."
Yeah.
And I would crack up. This is family, these are cousins who haven't seen me. So I would tell them it's me, it's Ellis, it's Ellis.
Wow.
They didn't believe it. They said, "No, you can't be Ellis. Ellis is 400." I'm like, "Yes, I lost 200 pounds. It's me." So then they would look at me in shock. They wouldn't. It's just so funny seeing people's reactions, even till this day when they see me in person, because they're used to the fat guy from high school.
Mm.
Um,
And you
so
not only just lost the weight, but you got into health and fitness pretty intensely, right?
yeah, yeah. So I started taking up mixed martial arts. I started because that's the first step is losing the weight. But after that, you have another challenge, and
Sustaining
that's
it,
lose skin.
and the skin, you
Yep,
tighten it
sustain
up.
it. And so, on top of having the insecurity of having so much weight on your shoulders, after you lose the weight, now you have another problem to deal with, and that's the loose skin. Nobody wants saggy skin. So, that's the next step. So I knew that in order to fix the skin issue, I had to bulk up. So I started getting into mixed martial arts, and I just started watching my nutrition, the things that I ate, body, first, and then my mind wanted happiness. So, in first thing in the day, I would drink my shake, get my protein in, get my chicken, my fish, all the things my body asked for. And then later on in the day, if I was still hungry, I would eat the things that I like. Now I had to develop that mentality. Otherwise, I would feel like I was depriving myself.
Mm,
And whenever you feel like you're depriving yourself, you're not gonna last. So that's
mm.
why I hate when people mention diet. When they talk about diets, let's say you gotta where. Oh, okay.
Oh no. You froze up or I froze up. One of the two of us froze up. If anyone's still watching right now, can you post if it's me or if it's Ellis? Oh,
Hello.
oh, there you are. You're back.
Hey,
All right.
sorry. Looks like I lost you for a
So,
second.
so,
Sorry
so,
about
yeah,
that.
yeah. So, the last thing I heard was I don't like diets because if we're depriving our body of something, they're not sustainable. So, um,
Exactly.
so I love
So
I love that because you were feeding your body the right things. You created the right habits. You sustained yourself. You got into mixed martial arts. Uh, and now you have a life, man. Now you just graduated from Full Sail, right? You're doing the videography, the photography. You're working on a movie. I mean, you got a lot
yeah.
of cool things happening. You're living a life, and it's only been from that surgery. You're talking within a 5-year period, 5 or 6 years. You have a whole new life ahead of you and a whole new life to live, and it gives so many people hope and inspiration. And you just demonstrated so much courage and I wish we had more time to just kind of talk and go with even more. I highly recommend everyone to pick up the story, check out Elis's website. If someone wanted to get in contact with you, if someone wanted to hear more from you, what would be the best way for them to get in contact with you?
Through Facebook, I'm a media guy. And I'm an art director as well and an editor. So a lot of my things are on Facebook. So just look my name up, Elis Ortiz, ELISORTIZ, or you can email me at EAO King, KING, the number one at gmail.com if you want any personal talks or anything like that.
And you put a
But
website also in the book. What's that website?
it must have been my photo
Yes,
arts.
the photo
Um,
arts.
the photo art. So that's basically what I do for a living. I'm an editor. I'm a photographer, and I actually make commercials for television.
Mm.
So a lot of the things on that site is some of the things I work on, in which is my photography. But what's different about my photography is that I do something called photo manipulation, where I'll take a photo of a subject and I'll do some type of effect that kind of shows who they are inside. It's almost like a self portrait,
Wow.
but something a little more spiritual based. And that kind of came from where I came from. There's always more to a person than what meets
Love
the
that.
eye.
What's that website? Can you post that website in the
Uh,
comments? Yeah.
yeah, let me do that right
What is it
now.
called?
But
Just so you
if
know.
Ellis underscore photo underscore art. So Ellis Photo Arts on Facebook. Yeah,
Got it.
yeah. Or you could just look up my personal Facebook page,
It's
which
on
is
there.
Ellis Ortiz. Yeah, yeah. But I'm gonna post that in the comments.
Dude, thanks for jamming. We appreciate you, Elis. I'm glad to have you part of the community. Enjoy the rest of your day. And everybody else, thanks for tuning in. Just remember, all the stories that we have at Real Stories, Real People is to raise awareness of other heroes around the world that have a story to tell, to inspire. Remember, inspire comes from Latin for in spirit, and we're all connected in some way, shape, or form. So we want to help our brothers and sisters share their stories and feed some people in the process. Every single dollar from the book sales go to PB&J for Tampa Bay. We're at about 74,000 meals now. So grab it tomorrow. Real Stories, Real People, Stories of Weight Loss. Check out Elis's information and his book, his photo art, his story. It's absolutely fantastic. So thanks for joining me, brother, and we'll chat soon.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Later.
Talk to you soon.